I know that some of you have been waiting for this one. The speaker won the Mirror Ball Trophy on ABC's Dancing with the Stars and was the last model standing on the CW's America's Next Top Model. Now, Nyle DiMarco is winning over audiences as an influential leader and ambassador for the deaf community. Believing that his deafness is an asset rather than a limitation, Nyle builds bridges between the deaf and hearing by shining a light not only on the struggles, but also the triumphs of deaf culture. Above all, Nyle shows audiences that with a sense of community, commitment to our goals, and a belief in yourself, you can accomplish anything. Co-sponsored by the Office of Disability Services, thank you so much. Please join me in welcoming Nyle DiMarco.
All right, let's see. Where should I stand? Okay. Are we good, interpreter? We're good. Hello, everyone. We have a packed house here today. I'm really glad to be here. I always get asked that question, are there any deaf people in the room? Can we get a show of hands? Am I the only deaf person here? Okay, I'm surprised. No one raised their hand. I can't really tell. But okay, so I'm the one deaf person here. Great. Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for having me. It's a thrill to be here. I'd like to start with one story. The story actually begins in Naples, Florida. After I graduated, I moved to Naples to live for about a year. Took a year off a few years after graduation, so that town didn't have any deaf people living there, not one. Everyone was hearing, and all of my friends could hear. There were a lot of well-known volleyball players and beach players that played for the Olympics that lived in that town of Naples, and they practiced there. So I'm pretty good at volleyball myself, actually more than pretty good, and especially on sand. I can really get up there. So I played a lot of volleyball in that year off. I didn't even work at all. So played day and night with all the people, and one day after playing beach volleyball, once we were done, I was sitting with a good friend who was hearing. As the sun was setting, he asked me a question. Now, keep in mind, in my entire life, no one has ever asked me this question. For 24 years on Earth, I've never seen anyone ask me this. And the question was, do you wish you could hear? I looked at him. It's an interesting question. Why is this gentleman posing this question to me, especially at this point, just sitting here? Why? And then I realized, with the waves coming in, he could hear on the beach. I couldn't. People were playing volleyball. You could hear them playing. I could not. There was a baby crying next to us. He could hear it. I couldn't. Behind me, there was a motorcycle going by or two, and everything had sound related to it. And my world was completely silent. So my response was, no, I never once wished I could hear. I don't want to hear anything at all. And the main reason for that was because, obviously, I was born deaf, and so that's been my entire life, my existence, and all I know. And really, if you think about it, if I persistently wished I could hear and wished I could speak, would I enjoy my life? Would I embrace my life? No, obviously I wouldn't. Let me give you an example. Suppose I have a job interview, and obviously the panel's going to be hearing, so I sit in front of the panel and wishing that I could hear them or wishing that I could speak or understand that interaction. Would I be able to perform well at that job interview? Obviously not. My negative thoughts would take over and the interview would impact my interview performance. So I have to forget about that. Now, if I sit in a job interview and I'm able to sign and tell them how they could benefit myself as a deaf person, obviously I was raised deaf and I have a very unique perspective on life. My experience is irreplaceable. and I wouldn't ask for that. The culture that I have ingrained in me, if I were to sit there and explain to that company, how would that benefit me as a deaf person? They have tons of ways that they could benefit from me, and I have a lot that I can offer. Guaranteed, I would get the job if I went in with the positive mindset. It's the mentality of embracing yourself, embracing my identity, and going through your path to thrive. During this presentation, I want you to keep in the back of your mind thriving and embracing yourself, because I'm sure you all have your own differences, and you may be aware of them, you may not be, or have yet to find that out. The point is, love yourselves. Embrace your differences first before you do anything else in life. Because your differences is what leads you above and beyond in life, okay? You get the picture? Thumbs up, everyone? Yes? Thumbs up? Okay, great, thank you. I can't really hear you, so I rely on visual cues so I can see what's going on. So again, I was born deaf, I told you that. And maybe you may not realize my mother and father are also deaf. My two brothers are deaf as well. Grandparents, both deaf. We have a large deaf family. Great-grandparents. I am the 4th generation of deafness in my family. And I have over 25 deaf members in my family. So to answer your question, it's not genetic, but, it's genetic, it's a C26 gene that we carry. So if I marry a deaf person and have children, more than likely the child will be deaf. If I marry someone who's hearing, like one of you here in the audience, then if I had a kid, that would be a 50-50 chance of us having a kid who could hear. Okay. I consider myself very fortunate to be born deaf and to deaf parents. My parents knew what to do, and they knew how to raise me in the best way they could. Obviously, the first day when I was born, they exposed me to sign language. They exposed me to English. So growing up, I was bilingual. And again, I was very fortunate because we had communication and I had access to language, rich language. And I felt that growing up, that was a normal life. I didn't have that type of struggle that I've noticed. When people are born hearing, it's like no big deal. And just like when I was born deaf, I thought, no big deal, it's normal. Now, I want to tell you about my twin brother. Many of you may not realize I do have a twin brother who's also deaf, and he doesn't look like me at all. He has orange, reddish hair, fair skin, freckles. He's short, athletic, maybe not as athletic as I am, but he has one skill and one talent that was always amazing to me. And I want to show you all this talent. Remember, he's deaf. Crazy, right? Really, it's, like I said, Nico, my twin brother, he knows, I mean, we know he's deaf. I'm thinking, what's the point? He says, you know what, I'm deaf, that's fine, what can I do? How can I understand this music? Let me explain how he did it. I remember when I was about 7 years old, he bought a boombox, kind of a cassette tape system that he would hold near his ear. And he would play tapes over and over again. And later, in my teen years, when YouTube came out, he had the music video right there with the boombox as loud as it could be, the speaker system, plus he would print out the lyrics on a sheet and play all of it at once. Read the sheet, read the YouTube, and study the beat. And he's actually able to sign songs in sign language. So if you gave him any 90s song, he would be able to sign that song without being able to hear it. He knows his shit. And honestly, I'm amazed. I have no idea how he does it. But like I said in the beginning, he embraced himself. He embraced his difference and was able to move on and make a difference. And that really was an impact on me. That video is just, that always reminds me and keeps that in the back of my mind, that no matter what difficult situations and adversity we may face in life, I think of this. I mean, if he can do this, I can do it. My parents knew what to do. Again, as I grew up, I was in a deaf school. I was in Queens at a deaf school. That school, back in the 80s or 90s, education was subpar. It was so-so. It was okay. And what I mean by that is my peers. All of my peers didn't know ASL. Even deaf students would show up and not have a way to communicate. The teachers weren't proficient in American Sign Language at all. Every time I wanted to have a conversation with some of my peers, they wouldn't really understand me. Every time I wanted to ask a teacher a question, they would ask me to repeat myself. They didn't understand me. I'm thinking we're at a deaf school. But at that time, I really didn't know the difference. I thought, well, I guess this is normal. I have good parents, and they kind of homeschool me as well. So I thought, this is normal, and it's fine. As time went on, my parents decided to move to another deaf school down in Texas. They had a much better education down there. And I remember going in there the first day, culture shock. It hit me. All of those deaf people, fluent in sign language. The teachers who were deaf. The superintendent, deaf as well. That was a utopia for me. And that was the moment that I realized, oh, now it's time to embrace myself as a deaf person and my identity as a deaf person. Find your community. That's the key. And that's what I did there. A better deaf school and a better education in Texas was the perfect community for me to progress and to thrive as a deaf person. I played sports when I was there. I was involved in a lot of after-school activities and a lot of things that I really couldn't do at a public school. I did go to a public school for 1 year. I couldn't really get myself involved with sports or activities because they kind of pushed me to the side. They weren't really sure if I could contribute. So we have the embrace aspect and then community. Community is the key to our identity. After I graduated high school, it was obvious that I wanted to go to a deaf university, Gallaudet University in DC. The reason I chose a deaf university was because I knew that it would be home for me. I walk into a campus with thousands and thousands of deaf people. I wanted to be a teacher and work in math. I have a degree in math, just so you know. And I wanted to teach deaf children math. Once I graduated, I thought, do I really want to do this? You know, those of you who near graduation in your major, you start to ponder and second guess yourself. Do I want to do this? Is this something I should do? So I took a few years off, like I mentioned. I lived in Florida. I also decided to travel the world. I went to over 42 different countries. And a lot of the times, I went by myself. It's really not that hard. Just so you know, it's easier to be deaf when you're traveling the world because a lot of foreign people are really amazing at gesturing. That's just one tidbit. So after I was done traveling, I came back and I decided that I wasn't going to teach, but I wanted to recruit deaf children to go to Gallaudet University and help them find their identities there in their community. Because statistically, there are 70 million deaf people that use sign language. and only 2% have access to education in sign language. So really what that means is that deaf people who know sign language go to a school, they're really not able to get that have access to that information, so they can't really learn. And there are a lot of kids around the United States, and so I was trying to work with Gallaudet as a recruiter to get them there. I had a job interview. I killed it. I knew I was going to get the job because, well, maybe because a friend of mine was there, told me I was going to get the job. But anyway, I thought, great. And then something happened. America's Next Top Model. Tyra Banks and her team contacted me through Instagram and said, hey, I think you have the look and you should audition. At first I was like, oh, come on, this is a scam. This has to be a scam. But then a week later, I was like, maybe it's not. So I decided to get a hold of her and say, are you serious? And they said, yes, absolutely, please. And I said, just so you know, I'm deaf. I can't hear. And they said, oh, really? I had no idea. You know what? Try anyway. And I thought, sure. So I sent in an application, and I made it. The experience was irreplaceable. I learned so much as a model, and I learned so much from Tyra Banks. But the whole experience was really difficult for me because imagine yourselves, well, during the show, they take away your phone. You stay in one large house, no television, you just interact with the models, and that's it, no outside world. But they don't know my language, and they're not willing to learn. So I was language deprived for 2.5 months. It was really a draining experience. There were so many situations where I was angry. I wanted to leave because I'm thinking, what's the point? Why did I sign up for this? But I told myself, I have two choices. Cause drama on TV or ignore them. So I moved on, tried to win, and then the message would be more powerful. Obviously, I chose the latter. And the reason being was I didn't want to cause drama. And I felt if I continued down that negative mindset and complaining, would I win it all? And would people like me? Obviously, I don't think so. So I kept a positive attitude, and I ended up winning the whole thing, which I was shocked. And then once that time came and I won, instantly I was on Dancing with the Stars. It was kind of funny because I remember the first meeting. There were 3 execs from Dancing with the Stars, and the first question they asked me was, will you make great TV? And I'm like, yes, yes. I'm thinking, oh shit, I'm not really sure if I am or not. I'm not even sure if I can dance. I can't hear the music, that's for sure. So then I thought of this. I thought of my brother, and I thought if he can, I can. So time went on. Oh, I'm actually running out of time here, speaking of times. I might go a little past 20 minutes. I hope you don't mind, do you? No? Little thumbs up? Okay, just a little past. So I remember the first week trying to learn. Yes, it was the first week. Wait a minute, let me back up. When I first met Peta, I met her. She didn't know who her dance partner was, nor did I. So we approached each other, and Peta was like, oh, fudge, he's deaf. So I could tell by her face, it was like a deer in headlights. She didn't know what to do. Game over. And we were supposed to have rehearsal that day, and she left. Canceled. Actually canceled. So I'm like, oh no, we're off to a bad start. I texted Peta and said, look, I know I'm deaf, but I'm willing to work twice as hard. I'm going to make this work. We will be great together. PETA said, okay, show up tomorrow and we'll do this. So I show up. The first week, we killed it. The dance was great. We made it work. The second week, again. Third week, killed it. The fourth week, we shot in New York in a small studio where we could practice. We had a small studio where we could practice. I came in, and she had a huge speaker system, and she turned it up really loud. Now, this has never happened before, mind you. I could feel it. It felt like I could hear it, too. It was so loud. And PETA said, it's loud, right? I want you to be able to hear and feel it for the dance. And I said, okay, fine. We practiced. We rehearsed. The first dance, I fucked up. It was fine. I think it was the morning. I'm thinking, okay, it's tired. Let's do it again. The second dance, the move didn't work. It wasn't working. The third try, I failed. And I'm thinking, I know why. I walked over to the music system, and I turned it off. And I told PETA, look, for the past 4 weeks, we've worked so well together. And I couldn't hear the music at all, but I was able to keep up. Now, why are you trying to make me hear something? And she said, it's like she was trying to fix a problem and fix something that's not broken. And PETA said, you know, you're right. So once there was no sound, I was able to dance the way I was before. And so I thought that was kind of funny. What's the point of teaching me to hear? I don't really want to, and I don't care. I'm deaf. It's fine. Let's embrace it. Let's move on, you know? So I want to show you this other video, my favorite dance. This one here, I think. Oh, maybe it's not included. Is it not there? Oh, well. Okay. I'll just explain it. It's not that one, that's for sure. Okay, we're fine. The whole 3-minute dance, it was paso, or a paso dance. So the whole entire dance had sound throughout. In the middle, there was a pause, and we eliminated sound for that portion, but we still continued to dance. And we danced around, and then it was probably for a good 20 seconds. And then the sound would slowly increase and come back in, and we were still in sync, dancing together in unison. The reason why I did that was because I felt that all the media in the article says, oh, a deaf guy's able to dance, wow. But you need to understand that in my deaf experience, the fact that I couldn't hear anything, week in and week out, I wasn't sure if everyone was able to understand that I wasn't able to hear. So I spoke to PETA and said, why don't we eliminate sound so they get that experience? And we did it. And it was one of my favorite videos. If you get a chance to look it up on YouTube, it's really powerful. And then I think people started to realize, wow, Nyle can't hear anything and is still dancing. How does he do it? And like I said in the beginning, if I always walked around wishing I could hear and complaining all the time, would I ever think of that story? Instead, you push it aside and think, what can I do with my deafness? Bring it to all of you. Everyone see me, hear me, look at me, understand my world. Make this a more interesting place. Make Dancing with the Stars more fun to watch. Whatever we can do. And I succeeded at doing that. And it's about loving your differences and using it in every situation. During Dancing with the Stars, my platform grew tremendously. And I thought, what can I do with this platform? I want to make change. And obviously, my deaf community needs me. I sat with my best friend, who's deaf, and had a conversation. What can we do? And I thought, we'll set up the Nyle DiMarco Foundation. The reason being, well, our mission, because there are over 360 million deaf people globally, And like I mentioned, 70 million deaf people who use sign language, but only 2% don't have access to the education in their language. So that's a large number. I wanted to start making change there. And also the other thing, more than 75% of hearing parents don't use sign language to communicate with their deaf children. That is another thing I'm trying to change. So what we're doing through my platform and the foundation is getting the word out there. And I'm working with other deaf organizations, and we're writing legislation, writing a bill to submit to legislators. And the bill says to make sure that all deaf children from day one of their lives have access to language, whatever that looks like, English, ASL, a combination of both. I don't want deaf students I don't want deaf students to be language deprived. And there are so many out there who are. I want to make sure that our community has equal access, just like all of you here. So 4 states have passed the bill, and we have a lot more work ahead of us, yes. But one funny thing, again, just going back to what I mentioned in the beginning, I wanted to teach math. Remember, that was my mission. I wanted to inspire deaf children. And even though my angle changed and my path is still the same. My path never changed. I'm still teaching, not just deaf students, but everyone, hearing people as well. So I'm educating broadly the culture and improving deaf people's lives. So it's kind of a parallel mission and the same passion. And the bottom line is, I was able to love myself, embrace myself, and be deaf, and embrace that through my journey. And I'm still on that journey. So again, love yourself, be yourself, embrace your differences on your ride. And I want to wrap this up by teaching you 2 simple signs in sign language, okay? Just 2. The first one is embrace, and the second one is yourself, okay? The first one is embrace. Everyone, embrace. Yourselves. Thumb up, yourselves. Again, with me. Embrace yourselves. Now, you do it on your own. Ready? Go. Great. You pass. That was easy, right? I give you an A. Round of applause, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry I went past my time. I just couldn't stop talking. Love you all. Take care.